Welcome, Evergreen District. I want to thank you for being here today. I know that you might not have chosen to be here, but I promise you are going to walk away from today feeling empowered and ready to implement strategies that will help your students. This image I have here is representative of my goals for us today. I want us to take steps together to climb the mountain of reflection, instruction, and implementation. My hope is that you will look back at the top of the mountain and realize that you are empowered and have grown in ways to best help your students comprehend the text they read. I want you to know why we are here today, looking at instructional practices we are already using and their effectiveness. I want to introduce or reintroduce you to a research-based instructional strategy you can easily implement within your classroom. And most of all, I want you to feel confident in your expertise and ability to do it on your own. You will see at each seat I have a packet. This has the slide information and copies of the images that we will be going over today. There will be places for you to write down your reflections, understandings, and additional places for notes as we go. So let's go ahead and get started. Why are we here? Let us start with some time to reflect on our teaching thus far. Here are some questions to help guide your reflection. What are some things you feel confident teaching for comprehension? How are your children doing? How do you know? Which do you feel more confident in teaching? Comprehension strategies for informational text or literary text? Take some time to reflect by yourself. When you're ready, go ahead and turn and talk with a partner or someone around you to celebrate some of the things we are doing well to support our students. I hear a lot of discussion about sharing ideas and strategies that you do to help your students. And the truth is, you are all great teachers and you are doing amazing things for your students. Let's take a look at our district data to highlight some of those strengths. This is the data from our norm reference reading assessment across the district. It measures reading comprehension. Overall, you can see across the district, we have a larger percenter of students at benchmark with their composite scores, which is kudos to you and your great strategies and instruction. We would like to continue to see a larger percentage at benchmark and a smaller percentage of students below benchmark. Let's take a closer look and more specifically at our grade level. Here are the scores of the Ohio State test for English Language Arts compared with the state scores, our district scores, and then specifically at each elementary school in our district. Take a second to look over the data silently to see what you notice. What's one strength and one area for improvement you see for our district? And remember, these are in this image along with all the other images and slides is in your packet. So if you're having a hard time seeing what's on the board, make sure you refer back to your packet. And when you feel ready that you have a strength and an area for improvement, go ahead and turn to the people around you and share out some of those things that you notice. Wow, those are some great comments. I like that we noticed our district for 4th grade scored slightly higher in the percent proficient when compared to the state scores, and our average test scores were about the same too. Dwight, I heard you say that our district has a lower percentage below proficient in each category when compared to the state of Ohio. These are all great strengths we have as a district. Yes, Jim, I agree. It is amazing how for reading informational text, we have 48% above proficient. Let's take a second to think about our lessons that support that high score. Go ahead, shout them out. You're right. I hear so many research-based strategies you are all using to support your students in comprehending informational text. Let's flip to reading literary text. What do you notice? Yes, Creed, I agree. That's where our district has the most at or near proficient. Let's reflect on our instruction for comprehension of literary text. To help guide this discussion, I have our last data set. This is the data for our district for the item analysis for reading literary text. I have grouped the same content statements together by color. Remember, a paper copy is also in your packet. I want you to take a few minutes to consider the following: a strength and then directly related a teaching strategy you use, an area for improvement, and your thoughts about teaching that content statement and a strategy that you might use. There are sticky notes at your table, and on the board I have 2 posters. Once you are done, you may post your stickies on the correlating poster. Feel free to talk with your table mates or do your work independently. You don't have to put your name on it, or you can. It's all up to you. I will go ahead and give you some time to get those up on the board. I'll be circulating around to see some of the comments that you're making. All right, great. I see a lot of sticky notes up there. Who feels comfortable sharing something that they put on their sticky note? Pam? Yeah, it is great to see our district's strength in the content statement, determining the meaning of words and phrases as they are used in a text, including those that allude to significant characters found in mythology, like Herculean. Who has an instructional practice, strategy, or material that supported students in this area? Angela, I agree with you. UN Dwight used a very engaging lesson, and the students have loved creating trading cards of the mythology characters. It was really engaging, and they had to understand the meaning of the words and phrases that described the characters in order to fill out the characters' strengths, weaknesses, etc. Phyllis? Yeah, I like what you shared about an area for district focus. I noticed that a lot of people listed the same. The determining a theme of a story, drama, or poem from details in a text, summarize the text. With 84% getting this question incorrect, Phyllis, you said that this is a standard you struggle with? Yeah, I've heard that a lot, that students often confuse the theme with part of the plot. I see a lot of heads agreeing. I noticed that too. Many times I'll say, so what do you think the theme was? Or what was the message? And they'll be like, well, Johnny did this and that. And I'm like, whoops. I also noticed that number 25 referred to details and examples in a text when explaining what the text says explicitly and then drawing inferences from the text. We have 48% incorrect. And this is interesting because in order to identify the theme, you have to infer the message of the story. Theme is typically not stated within the story. Students have to determine the important information or summarize and then look for the underlying messages. Well, let's take a look at the state standard that correlates with these content statements and some ways we can continue to support these students with their comprehension of literary text, because that seems to be where our biggest area for improvement could be. So our Ohio Learning Standards for English Language Arts that correlate to our areas for improvement are reading literary text, analyzing literary text development, determine a theme of a story, drama, or poem from details in the text, and B, summarize the text incorporating a theme determined from details in the text. In 4th grade, the students begin this deeper level comprehension work with analyzing the text to determine the important information. So our focus is comprehension of literary text. So how can we support the students' understanding? I want you to think about what you are already doing that supports your students in finding a theme. Toby? Yes, guided reading groups are perfect for supporting small groups of students at a time with identifying a theme. We provide reading materials at their instructional level and scaffold them to support their understanding. According to Fontes and Pinnell, the goal of a guided reading lesson for students is not just to read this book or even understand one single text, but the goal of guided reading is to help students build their reading power, to build a network of strategic actions for processing texts. So within the guided reading groups, we should be providing the students with support to understand themes in a variety of texts. What else are we already doing well? Erin? Yeah, we did learn earlier this year in a PD that the workshop model is ideal to support your entire class. This is something you all are doing and how you structure your literacy block, which is great. We do a mini lesson for 10 minutes to keep the students interested while we are teaching or reviewing. Then the students go on and try implementing this strategy That is when we use your idea, Toby, of working in those small guided reading groups. I want to take a closer look at this workshop model in more detail as explained by Lucy Calkins within her units of study. Our mini lessons should be less than 10 minutes. And then we should go into that independent reading or writing time. And we want them to be doing this majority of the time. And that's when the teacher is conferring or meeting with small groups of students based on the needs of the class. Within this time, we would take a pause for a mid-workshop teaching. That would be about 3 to 5 minutes because our independent reading and writing time is anywhere from 35 to 45 minutes. And then at the very end, we would do a share for 3 to 5 minutes. So in reflecting on your ideas and what you are already doing well, I want to provide you with an example of a comprehension strategy to support students in identifying themes. This will be a lesson you can easily incorporate during the mini lesson time frame to support students in identifying the theme of the story to comprehend literary text. Before moving on, I want you to jot down what a mini lesson is or what happens during that mini lesson. All right, so we can implement this comprehension strategy that I'll talk about for theme right into our mini lesson. We have this image of the components of a mini lesson to the side. That's in your packet as well, so if you'd like to take notes as we go over specifically what that looks like, make sure that you open up to that page. So according to Lucy Calkins and the Teachers College, the components of a mini lesson need to follow a predictable structure. So these components include connection, and in the connection, we are connecting the day's lesson with previous classroom work. We require the students to do a little bit of thinking to past learning, and they will expand their learning. This should be your hook and really draw readers and writers into what you're learning. Then we have your teaching point, which is the goal of the lesson, what your reader will try to do and how they will do it. It typically starts like, today I want to teach you, and then you go on. You want to make these memorable and crystal clear. Teaching. Using a teaching method, whether it be demonstration, guided practice, explicitly telling and showing an example, or inquiry, you pick one of those and then you pair it with a mentor text to provide some concrete instruction. Then you have your active engagement, the students turn and talk to try out new learning. And then you have your link, restating what the children have learned. To do this so they see how learning is transferable to another day and another text. This is the structure I will follow when modeling the comprehension strategy of identifying theme. Another research-based practice that we will focus on to help us teach this new strategy is our previous work with interactive read-alouds. According to Fontes and Pinnell, an interactive read-aloud is a whole group instructional strategy where a teacher reads a text aloud and purposely pauses for conversation. Students are asked to think, talk, and respond to the text in pairs or groups of 3 or 4, or as a whole group. The teacher is able to model processing the text, language, ideas, and meaning while the listener is actively engaged. This supports students' vocabulary development, increases their ability to think, talk, and write about texts, and students are engaged and interested, and it also promotes a joy of reading. Hands up if your students liked the following read-aloud books pictured here. Yes, this is great. So I want us to reuse these books from our interactive read-alouds to teach students how to identify theme. Then the children will be using a familiar text to think deeper about the lesson's or message of the story. I know some people may think that interactive read-alouds are childish, but according to the Fountas and Pinnell literacy team, this experience allows readers to experience rich, interesting texts that are age and grade appropriate, regardless of their independent or instructional reading level. It provides a context of learning how to talk about text with each other, and it builds a community of learners with shared literacy knowledge. It expands knowledge, language, and vocabulary, builds a foundation of mentor texts for reading and writing mini lessons. So I strongly encourage you to continue to use your interactive read-alouds with the kids, because this information is so great for them. It really builds such wonderful conversations within your classroom. So what will we be doing? We will be recognizing plot and inferring themes. According to Harvey and Gutevis, it is important to differentiate between plot and theme and infer the big ideas or themes when comprehending a text. We need to explicitly teach the difference between plot and theme. The plot explains the events that make up a story. We typically recall the plot of a story by summarizing the events in a story. Theme are the underlying messages, morals, and lessons that give the story texture, depth, and meaning. Rarely is it written out in the story. We must infer. Ness conducted research to see how much time teachers incorporate reading comprehension strategies during their ELA instruction and which strategies they use. This research was conducted to see if previous research stating there is little evidence that teachers have changed their instructional practices to incorporate daily explicit comprehension strategies despite evidence of its importance. They wanted to see if that she wanted to see if that had changed. The evidence showed that teachers have begun to incorporate daily explicit comprehension strategies, and the author states that to continue the positive trend in data, teachers need to continue with professional development to be able to provide explicit comprehension strategies. The data also shows the most popular comprehension strategy taught is question answering at 8.5%, which is a lower level retrieval type of question. Summarization at only 3.5%. We need to continue to explicitly teach students deeper level comprehension strategies, which is why that is our focus of our PD today. So we also want to notice that according to these authors, students with the strong inference-making skills tend to perform better on tasks of reading comprehension. In order to be successful in upper elementary reading tasks, students are expected to make high-level inferences in order to determine central ideas or themes. So let's test our understanding of themes. What are some common themes in literature? Write down one and then let's share out. That's great. I heard a lot of great words like pride, kindness, hope. But we want students to know that theme is more than just one word. We want to put it into a sentence. Here's an example from Cervellalo, and one of the read-alouds that we have used, Moving Day Surprise by Stolberg. And as the author explains, we know this book is about a little boy who is nervous to move into a new apartment because he misses his friends and his school. But at the end of the story, he finds out that He's moving to a large apartment in the same building. So it's not as much change as he thought. What the story is about, the important events, is the plot. But to say the big idea or theme, it's important to think about what happens. These are the ideas that come from our head, and they are not actual things that have happened in the story, although I have to think about what happens in the story to get my idea. So it can be hard to change, and sometimes we worry when we don't need to. Here's another example that the author provides. Frog leaves a note for Toad, telling him he's spending some time alone. Toad's feelings are hurt, and he goes to find Frog. The theme, or the big idea, is that sometimes friends need space, but they still want to be friends. So do we see the difference from using one word to explain the theme versus a sentence? Great. So, are you ready? So according to Calkins, the components of a mini lesson needs to follow that predictable structure that we talked about already. So I am going to teach this. This would be as if I was teaching a lesson to the kids. We know the book Enemy Pie. I think everybody here knows it. And so I am going to talk to you as if you were my class. Okay. Good morning, readers. I was babysitting my little cousin who is 5, and she was telling me all about her enemy at school. She is little, and I wanted to help her learn a life lesson. It reminded me of a read aloud that we have done, Enemy Pie by Derek Munson. Do you remember that book? Readers, today we are going to recall the plot of Enemy Pie by summarizing the most important events that happened, and then we are going to find the theme or life lessons that I can teach my cousin. The theme is rarely stated in the text, and we have to infer based on the plot. Theme is the underlining ideas, morals, and lessons that give the story its texture, depth, and meaning. Listen as I recall the most important information from Enemy Pie. Remember, this is like our work with summarizing. A boy's perfect summer is ruined when Jeremy Ross moves into the neighborhood and becomes the boy's biggest and only enemy. The boy's father has a secret recipe guaranteed to get rid of enemies. Enemy Pie. Part of the secret recipe is that while Dad makes enemy pie, his son has to spend the day with his enemy and be nice to him. At the end of the story, the boy changes his mind and doesn't want to feed Jeremy the enemy pie. His dad, Jeremy, and the boy all eat the pie, and it was good. Now let's take a look at my anchor chart. The plot is a summary that I just told to you. And on the other side, we are going to find the theme. So, I think about the events to create a theme for my own ideas. We ask ourselves, what is your idea about what is happening? What is the big idea from the story? So for our first one, a boy's perfect summer is ruined when Jeremy Ross moves into the neighborhood and becomes the boy's biggest enemy. I thought the theme should be, don't judge people until you get to know them. I was thinking this because the boy decides that Jeremy is his enemy before really getting to know him. Our next one is, the boy's father has a secret recipe guaranteed to get rid of enemies, enemy pie. I infer the theme to be, don't jump to conclusions without proof, because I thought that the boy thinks that the pie is going to be disgusting and like an evil prank to his enemy, but in the end, we have to infer that it's a normal pie because they all eat it. So he was kind of jumping to conclusions without having proof that the pie really was going to be good or bad. Our last one is, part of the secret recipe is that while Dad makes the pie, his son has to spend the day with his enemy and be nice to him. The boy did, and he found out that Jeremy Ross was nice, and the boy had fun with him. So my theme was, the bigger message that I inferred was that the best way to make an enemy into a friend is to treat him or her with kindness. I want you to turn and talk with your your partner or table mates to try to infer the theme with the last event from the plot. What do you think the theme could be from this event in the story? At the end of the story, the boy changes his mind and doesn't want to feed Jeremy the enemy pie. His dad, Jeremy, and the boy all eat pie, and it was good. I agree with you. It is important to treat everyone with kindness and respect. Today you have watched as I told the most important details from the story. This was similar to our summarizing work. Then from those events, I thought about what the message could be. Those ideas came from our head, not the text. I think that I will teach my cousin the importance of being kind to everyone you meet. It is important to think about the theme in all texts. It shows that we have a deeper understanding of what the author's message or purpose for writing might be. And then this was an example by an interactive read aloud by Fontes and Pinnell. So, classroom applications. Let's talk about your instructional concerns and think about your individual classrooms. How could you change this lesson to fit your kids? Do your kids need more or less support? How could you extend this lesson? I will pass out some more of the read aloud books that you are familiar with, and I want you to try creating a mini lesson. I will be around to help. This is your guided opportunity to think about how these lessons could unfold and increase your understanding so you feel confident to use these in your own classroom. At this point in the professional development, I would allow the teachers 20 to 30 minutes to create mini lessons while I go around and confer with teachers. This whole experience is following the workshop model, and then I could even do a mid-workshop teaching about a common concern or celebration that I have noticed throughout my conferencing. And then I would end with a share for about 5 minutes, allowing the teachers to share their 10-minute mini lessons. So that's how I would continue with the rest of the professional development. But I am going to continue on because I don't want to pause here for 30 minutes. So everybody shared. It was great. All right, here are some additional resources that you may want to look into. The book that I used today to teach plot verse theme for supporting students' comprehension was Reading Strategies book, Your Everything Guide to Developing Skilled Readers. She also has a lot more information in that book, a whole bunch of other strategies, more for theme, more for informational texts. There's a lot of information there that would be very helpful for you. I have the book. I actually have 2 copies, so if you would like to stop by and borrow it for a little bit, feel free to stop by. This website here gives you a lot more read aloud books to teach theme. And then, of course, as always, ask me. I'm here to help in any way that I can. I can come watch a lesson and see how your mini lesson goes. I could teach your class a mini lesson if you would like to see one more time what that would look like. I can help you structure the lesson for your class. I'm truly here to help you in any way that you need. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. I will send you a link for this Prezi presentation so that you can also refer back to it if you need to. And then before you go, I would love to hear your constructive thoughts. I will pass out a survey for you to let me know what you thought of this professional development. Please be honest. You don't need to put your names on it, but your feedback will help me continue to create the most meaningful professional development for our staff. And as always, please contact me if you have any questions as you implement this strategy within your classrooms. Good luck! For differentiating per building, it would truly depend on the item analysis per building to see exactly what content statement they seem to be struggling with. But based on the Ohio English Language Arts test, I would infer that for elementary, I would keep the presentation exactly as is. The building needs more support and comprehension, and this instructional strategy would be perfect for them. They have 19% below proficient in reading informational text and literary text, which is a little higher when compared to the district. For Hemlock Elementary, I would emphasize more of a focus on having the students write out the plot. I would do this because they have a larger percent below proficient for writing. However, they have a lower percentage below proficient for reading informational text and literary text. Excuse me. So I would still teach them the mini lesson, but for independent practice, I would focus on the students applying it to their chapter books that they are reading for more of a challenge. And then for Juniper Elementary, I would also emphasize more of a focus on writing the plot and looking how to apply this strategy to informational text, because they have an even higher percentage below proficient in writing and in reading informational text. Here are my references for the presentation, and then below there are the references for the images that I used. I created the diagram of the overview of the writer's workshop based on Lucy Calkins' picture there, so I wanted to include that. Also, I couldn't get the references to follow the specific requirements for APA because it would change how they were laid out once I put them onto the slide. So that's why they're bulleted and not indented the way that it would be on a paper. Thanks so much. Bye.